Thank you all. It's such an honor to be here today. And as Virginia said, I really believe in this term, bossed up. And today we're talking about connection. I want to talk about the connection between our personal and professional lives and the importance of getting what I call bossed up instead of burnt out. And it's a bit ironic that we're having this conversation today because just a few years ago, I found myself on a college campus much like this one, right around this time of year, and I was stopped at a stoplight, finding myself completely and utterly, mentally and physically exhausted. And as I stopped at the stoplight, I watched the college students rolling their suitcases and carrying their duffel bags out of campus on their way home for Thanksgiving break. And I looked at them with this utter pang of jealousy in the pit of my stomach at the concept of being able to stop and go home and take a break. At the time, I had just been coming off a 2-year grueling campaign playing a role in passing our federal health reform. It was a role I was so fortunate to have. I was able to step up in a leadership capacity as a state director, one of 50 in the nation, and help pass a piece of policy I felt so passionate about. And yet, over the course of those 2 years, while my professional life was taking off in so many ways, my personal life was falling apart. I'd gone from being a college athlete to not having a gym membership for a few years there. I was working right through my lunch break every day, barely stopping to have a meal, much less stopping for anything. And at the same time, I found myself in a relationship that really brought me down, a relationship that started having me question my sense of identity, my sense of agency, and my ability to have control over my day-to-day actions and my next steps in life. And as I sat there at that stoplight, I realized that if I wanted to be in this fight for the long haul, if I wanted to have a career with impact, I can't keep up this pace, even if I love the work. I had to start investing in my personal sustainability for the sake of my professional longevity. Now, I'm not alone in this, right? We Americans are proud workaholics. In fact, so many of us love our work and stay at that desk that 4 out of 10 of us last year left paid vacation days on the table. So much so that Americans, more than any other nation of workers, take work home with them late into the evening and are more likely to work over the course of the weekend. We love our work, right? Maybe. We Americans are so much more likely to continue the pattern of working ourselves. Maybe perhaps we love our work, or perhaps there's something else going on there. Perhaps there's a anxiety that we're afraid of what would happen if we step away. Americans are more likely to report that they don't feel like they have time or ability to step away from work, or that they're afraid of what might happen or what people might say about those who aren't at the desk all the time. And this burnout culture is particularly troublesome for women who continue to face a second shift of unpaid labor at home. The second shift makes burnout culture especially tricky for women. In fact, like I said, time use research shows that even when men and women are working full-time, this pattern repeats itself. And this can leave women facing a double bind. It leaves us experiencing role overload. And this is something men and women both experience. But women are more likely to report that the roles we play at home in our personal lives, with our friends, with our families, become increasingly competitive over our limited time and resources with the roles that we play at work, the professional hats we're wearing. And this can leave women in particular, but many of us, facing this double bind of feeling guilt-stricken and worried about personal matters while at work, and guilt-stricken and worrying about work while not working, hypothetically. But gentlemen, I have to say, we do acknowledge that men are doing more when it comes to caretaking and more at home than ever before. But studies have actually shown that men are critically better at leaving work at work without the guilt. In fact, in a recent study of households in which men and women work full-time, women reported feeling preoccupied and worried about matters of work about 34% of the time. Men experience these feelings of anxiety only 25% of the time. A significant difference, although neither of those numbers is particularly great. So we know that this burnout culture that we're feeling at work is affecting all of us. And it's not just us employees, this affects businesses as well. US companies lost $300 billion last year because of job-related stress. Things like absenteeism, reduced productivity, and turnover are not just expensive for us personally, but are expensive for our organizations professionally. Yet, there's a growing body of research that shows happier, healthier employees are better for the bottom line. And I believe this is a better way, there is a better way than our burnt out status quo, our culture of burnout. And it's incumbent upon all of us, men and women, employees and employers, to buy into a new way of thinking, of living and working. And this is what I call getting bossed up instead of burnt out. Now, a key fundamental component of bossed up, or being bossed up, hinges on the idea that our personal and professional lives are connected, that work, the love in our lives, our relationships, and our health and wellness are intimately intertwined. And when even we workaholic Americans accept this premise, this framework enables us to give ourselves permission to invest in our personal sustainability for the sake of our long-term professional success. And it's about taking responsibility, all of us, for crafting a happy, healthy, and sustainable career path. This is what I call protecting our happiness like it's our job. But that's okay, that's all well and good, right, Emily? How do we do that? What does that actually look like? Well, there are so many ways to take the bossed up philosophy into our personal and professional lives that we could be here all weekend, and I'm sure that we've got lots that we want to get to today. But if we want to walk away with one thing that all of us can do better, leaving today, carrying this with us, I want to focus on this one skill that will help us in many situations. It'll help us when it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on a Friday, we're getting ready to leave the office, maybe we have a date that night we're looking forward to, and our colleague asks us again if we would help him or her finish that report that they were trying to get to all week. Or when maybe you catch yourself postponing your own doctor's or dentist appointments over and over again, saying, I'm going to get to it once things at work calm down. Or perhaps, as I may have known to do a few times, you've promised your significant other a lovely meal. You've said, I'm going to make this fabulous meal for us. We're going to have dinner at my place tonight. And then you've got 10 minutes before he or she gets there, and there's nothing in the fridge or freezer. Okay, this is a skill we can use both in our personal and professional lives. And of course, I'm talking about the power of no. Saying no actually makes room for yes in our lives. Being able to strategically and mindfully decide which of the constant demands on our time and energy we want to take on, because it enables us to get what we need to accomplish and what we're mindfully striving to accomplish done. Now, I know this can be scary. Saying no and being able to say no to someone's request is terrifying at times, especially when there's power dynamics in the room, or as particularly when we're women who've been socially conditioned all our lives to be caring, willing, helpful, and giving with our time. But being able to assert ourselves in this way is actually linked to long-term reduced anxiety and increased self-esteem. So what does this really look like? The first way we can get better at saying no is to step back, to give ourselves a little bit of a waiting period when a request comes in, maybe our inbox or in our doorway. to give ourselves an opportunity to write back and say, you know, that's a great question. Let me get back to you. I need to check on my availability for the upcoming week or so before I respond. Taking that moment and giving ourselves the opportunity not to respond with a gut reaction, but to really be strategic about deciding in a measured way what we're willing to take on when we're being distracted and pulled in so many directions. Another key component of this is being able to keep it simple, right? When we're declining an opportunity or a question or a request, being able to not overwhelm your response with apologies or qualifiers by simply saying, thank you for this invitation or for this request to take on this new role. I'm unable to do it at this time, but I hope you'll think of me again in the future. Now, that doesn't mean we need to follow up with many qualifiers or apologies, but if required, if this is just so uncomfortable for us, we can always say there's just too much in the pipeline right now, you've got too much coming down the pike, which is absolutely an option whenever we need it to be. But another way of thinking about keeping it simple is maybe just coming up with simple rules for yourself. An attorney I know named Amy has a simple rule with her clients. They can have access to her work office phone, to her email, but no one gets her cell phone. And this can feel crazy for us for lawyers in the room who know how of service you want to be to your clients. But really drawing a line in the sand and keeping it simple is a way to continue to boss up in your life. And finally, and this is so helpful, is to be able to offer a clear alternative. Saying no doesn't need to feel mean. When we say no, we can offer another way to get to yes. Like maybe we could do this again next week. Would that work for you? Postponing. Or if I can't take this project on, I recommend someone else who absolutely can. And there's a great story. A woman named Sharon, who was doing a ton of excellent work in her organization, was asked by her boss, oh, hey, you organized that big conference for us last year. Do you mind doing that again? And she had already a full plate of paid client work that she was unable and didn't want to take on this extra duty that wasn't going to help further her cause, her purpose in the office place. But being able to say, you know, I don't have the capacity to do that, but I recommend, you know, the person down the hall who's really good at rising to opportunities like this, and provide the person who's asking with a clear alternative. Sometimes it's just, to get started getting comfortable with this concept, it's about giving ourselves permission. Giving ourselves permission to think that we can't or don't necessarily want to do it all. And I worked with a young woman named Natalia, who's an Ivy League grad and had a big job as an investment banker on Wall Street for 2 years. And when she came to us, she was utterly and completely at the end of her rope. She was looking for a better way to sustain her pace, but she felt like she couldn't do anything about it, like she didn't have any choice in the matter. And losing that sense of agency is such a clear line to burnout in our culture. So I challenged her with a starter self-care act. It was a concept of taking yourself out for a pedicure. A pedicure is the perfect self-care starter act because it leaves your thumbs free for your BlackBerry if you absolutely must have it. And I said, Natalia, you're going to take some time. Maybe you don't have anything, like if you're not on deadline, right? This is within reason. We're not being currently asked to deliver. You're not a brain surgeon. If you have a moment when you feel like no one's breathing down your back for something, perhaps it's 5 o'clock or perhaps it's the lunch hour, and you can take yourself out for a half an hour to get a pedicure. And she looked at me like, you want me to do what now? You want me to walk away from my desk? And this is an investment banker who would go into the office 9 a.m. and leave the office at 10 p.m. every night. And that was the cycle that she was repeating. So she laughed at me. She later told me that her boss gave her feedback that said, hey, Natalia, you know that email you sent out to the team apologizing for the fact that you've got a doctor's appointment coming up later this week? You don't really need to do that. If you've got a doctor's appointment, you certainly don't need to apologize for it, and you can just go. We'll survive here without you. And so it was so hard for Natalia, and I know it's so hard for many of us, to prioritize our personal well-being in this endless cycle of work. But frankly, we have to stop shooting all over ourselves. We have to stop the feeling of we should be doing more. We should be in more places at once. I really should be better about that. Where are these concepts coming from? Where is this pressure coming from? Giving ourselves the opportunity to be strategic with the projects we take on and the opportunities we turn down definitely and can certainly produce guilt. And we know that the research shows women in particular experience more of this role overload. In fact, however, women are 25% less likely than men over the course of an average workday to take any time at all for themselves, for personal needs, or just to get up and take a walk. So in order for us to be in this for the long haul, to have careers with impact, we have to strive to beat back our culture of burnout and get bossed up. Now, I would be remiss if I were to say that this is all about us women doing this on our own. This absolutely will require the leadership and action from individuals, our organizations and workplaces, and our social institutions to turn around our burnout culture. And I'm optimistic because I see great innovative companies who are taking seriously the connection between our personal and professional lives. I see Google's cafeterias taking the action of planning and preparing and packing your lunch every day off of their employees' to-do lists because, frankly, they have better things to do. I see the Huffington Post's nap rooms, yes, you heard nap rooms, that they've instituted in all of their offices, making it socially acceptable for their employees to sign up for and take a 20-minute rejuvenating nap, knowing that they're coming back to their desks more refreshed and ready to write that next blog post. I'm optimistic because I know that with changes in our organizations and with our action collectively as individuals to decide to begin now, that we too can turn around the burnout culture in our lives and lead to a brighter, happier, healthier future in which we're not just happier, healthier people, but we're more productive people. So I challenge every one of us to get bossed up, to say no to burnout culture, and to together craft happy, healthy, and sustainable career paths. Thank you very much.